Members' comments. Last time we did everybody's call sign because YouTube changed and everybody's call signs are very different from their real names. So the Circustit, aka the Entertainer, the worst one, primarily because of poor writing. While Blofeld has his moments, it does not feel justified to tie him to the previous films, nor does it feel justified that he is Bond's stepbrother. Does anyone actually buy that he is the author of all of Bond's pain?
Me. It was all me, James. It's always been me, the author of all your pain.
No, of course not. The film also tries to address mass surveillance, but only in a superficial way. It's a shame since it's definitely relevant and would have been a smart focus for the story, since Spectre is all about control, of course. Instead, it's even more dumbed down than fake news and Tomorrow Never Dies. It primarily suffers due to the focus on making the story personal for Bond. Yes. The same with Bond and Madeline. They barely have time to meet before apparently falling in love. During the torture scene, it's hard to believe that Madeline is supposed to care so much for Bond. So why should we? Yes. Dude, the Entertainer's always on point. Due to Bond's personal stakes being so unengaging, the climax feels completely off. Craig's rogues gallery appearing on the walls at the MI6 demolition site is supposed to make you feel like it's all been leading up to this, but it really hasn't. It makes no sense. On this note, it annoys me that they toned down Green and Quantum of Solace because people generally dislike the film. Exactly. It's like they're like, let's react in the short term. Nobody liked that movie.
When you look at the films, it's like it would make way more sense, regardless of like anything I've said, because I do think that movie is kind of forgettable. But regardless, it would make the most sense to be him connected to Spectre than anybody else. He would have been an agent of Spectre. That would have made more sense.
Yeah, like be confident in your franchise enough to be like, I know you guys don't like Quantum now, because in the future, I think people will like Quantum more in the future. I really think they will. So like, treat it like it wasn't this weird up that nobody likes. Treat it like someday people are going to come around to it. Same with Bond saving Madeline. Compared to when Bond was trying to save Vesper, it's embarrassing that this is supposed to have the same impact. Yeah, romantically, who cares? But that net stunt is definitely one of the best moments of this movie. Of course, there are also good moments. It's still a Bond film, and I enjoy it. I don't relate. I hate this movie. The Bellucci sequence is probably a top 10 for me. Also great cinematography throughout and a classic feel to the film and the score. Number 25 feels harsh. There sure are less competent Bond films, such as Die Another Day and Diamonds Are Forever, but this is the only film where I lose all interest in the story. Cordy Manor. See, Cordy Manor's got it going on. Cordy Manor's call sign is Cordy Manor. And his YouTube name is Cordy Manor. So smart.
Keep it consistent.
Spectre is the worst Bond movie ever and is also the most boring movie ever. Spectre meeting boring. It's not suspenseful at all. It's just boring. Bond boring. Madeline Swan boring. Car chase boring. Plot boring. People like to say that this movie is like Die Another Day. The first two acts are good and the third is a train wreck, but I disagree. Nothing about the first two acts is good. What about it is good? The cold open was cool the first time, but now I think it's way too ridiculous. All that for a ring. Bringing back Judi Dench in some stupid video. Why is there smart blood? The Monica Bellucci scene is way too creepy for Craig Bond. Bond in this movie comes off like a complete psychopath. The rat scene is ridiculous. Finding tapes of Vesper's torture is kind of dumb. Madeline Swan trying way too hard to get. She's playing hard to get. They just let Bond into the meeting, and he doesn't find it odd. The rings were stupid in 1965, and even more stupider in 2015. Yeah.
Yeah, because we always made that joke about, like, the fact that he's got the Spectre ring and Thunderball, and it's, like, ginormous.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I'm a part of a secret organization? Oh, really?
Not so secret. Yeah, quantum pins are dumber, but yes. The meeting wasn't even suspenseful. The whole time I was like, someone talk. It leads into a boring-ass car chase with the most annoying Bond comedy when he turns on the radio. Exactly, it gets goofy. The scene with Mr. White is a good scene, but I don't get why he's in exile. Bond ignoring them. Well, isn't it because he's like being hunted? Like he's essentially being hunted.
Well, a thallium would suggest that he doesn't like you very much anymore. And clearly the feeling is mutual.
Here's the thing. I like the Spectre scene. I like the moodiness of it. It does kind of give me the vibes of Eyes Wide Shut. The feel of that, where it's kind of the same kind of sequence, right? Because he's like, Tom Cruise is going into this meeting. He's like breaking into this weird sex cult meeting. The things that it's missing really for me as a Bond fan, really, is like it's missing the classic Spectre kill that we've talked about, where you think it's going to be this guy gets killed. Never mind, it's this guy. It's actually his partner.
They just gave that over to Mr. Hijinks, and that's supposed to replace it, but it's not the same. It doesn't show that ruthlessness of Blofeld himself.
I don't need the comic book stuff of like the burning chairs or the buttons under it, but like it would have been nice if like you thought I was going to kill somebody else, and then
showing somebody be like, but Mr. Blofeld, and he's like,
we didn't get that.
You failed me. That
would have been nice. That we're missing. I would have thought it would have been a cool element if Bond came in and then like they all like eventually when they all knew that he was there, everybody turned and saw him and like they already knew he was coming. I thought it would have been cool.
Because it is creepy, but yeah. So anyway. Bond ignoring the camera is either dumb or makes him look like a psycho. Is he talking about when he's meeting
Mr. White?
Mr. White? Bond ignoring the camera?
Remember when he goes to Mr. White and then later Batista comes in and he walks in and he's like, oh, I missed him. And then he looks up and there's a camera there. And you're like, you would think that Bond would have been smart and got rid of the camera or something, but he doesn't.
Yeah, but saying Bond ignoring the camera makes him look like a psycho. So like, Cordy, you're saying Bond should have covered his tracks better? Either way, it's sloppy. I mean, just like, again, sloppy piece of shit. The Hinks fight on the train is not even that good. I thought he was going to survive that like it was a Bugs Bunny cartoon and come back at the end. Yeah, I wrote that in my notes. I failed to mention it. It's like, did he die? I guess he did because he never comes back, but like he probably could have survived that.
He could have, like, because there's been other times when like a character like Jaws has gone through something similar and then he just ends up coming back.
Yeah, the fact that Bond is barely bloody or sweating is too neat. It leads to Swan and Bond having forced sex. Well, I don't know. Again, adrenaline makes people horny.
What do we do now?
However, I will say that her line is really dumb if you think about it for more than 2 seconds. What could Bond have possibly responded to that otherwise?
What do we do now?
We're gonna or what?
So it's just a poor setup. It's just more sloppy screenwriting. Why is Hinks even trying to kill them if Blofeld is going to meet them later anyways? I thought about that. I think he's trying to impress Blofeld. Anybody would have done that.
I know you said his character's flat, but it does seem like he is like this. He's a ladder climber. Like that's what I get out of it. Is just like, oh yeah, he's trying to prove himself in the organization. And like, yeah, again, that would have been cooler if we got a better car chase where maybe there was multiple cars and like you suggest, like he's ramming the other cars to get to Bond because he wants the credit and everything. Again, because it's sloppy, it goes. And what I suggested earlier is like, why don't you just kill Swan?
Yeah.
Right? Like, why wouldn't he just do that? Like, wouldn't that be
It's all
more
sloppy
efficient?
and stupid and not thought out. So
it's dumb.
I have a hot take with Blofeld. I never thought Blofeld was a good villain for Bond. He was never good in the series at all. The smartest thing Broccoli did was kill him off and For Your Eyes Only. So the fact he was brought back was a dumb decision. Yeah, and rushed. If you're going to do it, wait a few years. Hinks should actually be Blofeld. Blofeld in the books was supposed to be a big wrestler, not some skinny white dude with a scar on his face. Perfect for Dave Bautista. Now we come to the third act of the movie. The third act of this movie is the worst third act in the history of movies. Yes, really. I was about to say yes, really. Yes, parentheses. Yes, really. I mean, this act is so bad, it makes the third act of Die Another Day look like the best movie ever. I was going to go into the third act, but it makes me angry to think about, and I'm sure Charlie will break it down. In short, this movie tries to be a 60s Bond movie and a modern Bond and fails at both, and I hate it. Bottom of the list. Justice for You Only Live Twice. Well, at least we know what C stands for. Crap. Yes, Cordy. Yes. Oh, and then Prox TD, who is Lemmy is God, says, this is fucking hilarious. Lemmy is God says, there is so much wasted potential in this movie. Tons of classic Bond stuff, great locations, great actors for major roles. Walt, Sado, Bellucci, who is criminally underused, yes. That should all add up to at least a movie like Thunderball, but it does not even come close. Every so often, I forget this and end up rewatching it, thinking it is at least an entertaining action movie that is fun to watch. The pre-title sequence is pretty cool, except the quote, yeah. And then the movie mostly gets progressively worse from there. Once the movie gets to the Blofeld brother turn and purports to rewrite the whole Craig era, I just want to turn it off. This is easily bottom 5, certainly Craig's worst, and a contender for dead last due to the collateral damage to the other Craig era films. Exactly. It retroactively f***s with better movies, just like Quantum f***ed with Casino. But this is even worse.
Yeah, we forgot to mention the opening. And I was like, yeah, I forgot about that. It's like so weird because it's never been established on any of these films where they have an artsy opening. The only other thing that they ever do is we're here. That's it. That's all they ever do. It's like, hey, we're in Mexico. We're in Venice, whatever. But they've never been like the dead are alive. And they're like, Mendez, this is your thesis. This is what you're opening with.
Yeah. This is the theme.
Stupid.
Oh, you thought Blofeld was dead. Well, yeah, we thought that Silva was dead. Again, you're just trying to recreate the same success you just had, and you're failing at it miserably.
Right.
Spectre Chair Engineer says, Spectre is one of the most frustrating Bond films for me. On the surface, it has just about every classic Bond element you can think of. However, it's obvious that no one in the writer's room had a clue of how to tie it all together. My biggest complaint is the presence of weird continuity errors, like Q's gag about the car, exactly, that directly contradict Skyfall. Kind of strange when the point is to connect the Craig films. Recycled score drains the life from this movie. First time the series goes into straight up sacrilegious territory too. Low tier Bond, arguably bottom 3. CMJM1221, aka TOF, Toph says, here are my primary thoughts on Spectre. This one is quite low on the list for me. I'm sure the plot, story, and character issues have already been discussed, Bond nauseum. The retconning, the erratic tone, the complete shelving of the universal surveillance threat, the sisterhood of the traveling Spectre ring, and the sisterhood of the traveling Spectre ring, and the brilliant idea to make our megalomaniacal arch nemesis motivated by the Cinderella effect. After some thought, this is what this movie feels like to me. Sludge. That feeling of being force-fed, factory-produced baby food on a full stomach that watching Marvel and Star Wars content feels like now. If Barbara Broccoli ever sold the Bond movies to Disney, I imagine that Spectre would be the kind of movie they would produce after 5 years. What rescues this movie from the bottom is the scene in the secret room at L'Americaine. Bond happening upon Vesper's interrogation tape and discarding it swiftly is an effective and subtle character moment because we can interpret it in several ways. Has he moved on from Vesper, or has he merely compartmentalized her? Still 23 out of 25 for me. I'm curious what you would put below. What the goes below this? A note on Blofeld. I place myself in the old Patterson camp. Oh, Patterson camp, where he is at his best when he is hidden. However, this doesn't mean we can't learn anything about him. I recall the scene in From Russia with Love where he compares the world powers to the Siamese fighting fish who exhaust themselves before being beaten by a third, which effectively encapsulates our villain's worldview. The global powers are fools who deserve to be subverted and devoured. I've always enjoyed the more philosophical Bond villains, one who has given thought to their actions. Of course. My hot take is I don't think a character like Blofeld should ever leave the shadows. Not every villain needs to be made flesh and blood. And as this movie proves, giving a Bond villain more personal motivation doesn't always make them more interesting and dimensional. Sometimes it serves only to expose them of being motivated by base human jealousy rather than heavier concepts like power, chaos, or domination. 100%. Even if you insisted on having them be brothers, okay, just do that and then move straight to dialogue scenes about, like, everything that Blofeld should have been saying. They gave it to C, where C's like, look, the world is chaos, and I'm trying to bring order to the chaos. That's at least something that everybody can understand, because the world is chaotic, and you have all these men trying to usher in a certain amount of control and therefore order around this chaos.
Like he would be like very Machiavellian and just be like, it doesn't matter. I'm going to kill millions of people because I need to do this if that'll bring order. And Bond's like, you're killing people.
There have been men throughout history who have tried to do that. And it is a classic story of freedom versus security. I love any story about freedom versus security. The question always becomes, once you introduce that system of control, who's in charge? Who gets to make those decisions?
We're a global power, an unelected one.
And human nature proves time and again that inevitably that leads to tyranny.
Now, Blofeld may have good intentions, but it will lead to global tyranny. And there are some people who want that. Cut to Loki, where Loki's like, you human beings, you just want to be ruled.
Is this not your natural state? It's the unspoken truth of humanity that you crave subjugation.
That is true. There are a lot of Americans who probably shouldn't live in America because they really just want to live somewhere where somebody tells them what to do all day. They just want Big Brother to look after them because they can't look after themselves. They want to be sheep because freedom can be scary because it's uncertain.
But America is specifically chaotic because we decided a long time ago that we'd rather have the chaos that comes with freedom rather than the tyranny that comes with security.
You've turned every cell phone in Gotham into a microphone. This is wrong.
I've got to find this man, Lucius.
At what cost?
For example, we'd rather have the chaos of the occasional mass shooting than the inevitable tyranny of a government that subjugates an unarmed populace. We would rather deal with the discomfort of an individual's right to say offensive things rather than allow hate speech laws to silence those who speak truth to power. Because again, it always leads to Spectre-esque total control.
Can I stand in America? I have freedom of speech. If people don't like it, then go f*** their f***ing self.
Now those freedoms have been infringed upon for, the last 150 years as our Constitution has slowly been ripped to shreds. But the point I'm making is that it's an eternally interesting concept of freedom versus security, specifically because there's an inverse relationship between the two. As freedom goes up, security goes down, and vice versa.
I know surveillance is a fact of life. It's how you use the information that concerns me and who is using it.
This is what we need to do to keep the people safe.
So there is no easy and perfect answer, which makes for great thematic storytelling.
And so this movie could have been about that. And all the interesting stuff that Blofeld should have said was given over to C to deliver in like a minute and a half, rather than make the whole movie about that. Because as we've talked about with all these different Bond movies, the most interesting bad guys are the ones where you're like, I can see their point. A certain part of me says, yes, C is right. Democracy is bullshit. It is bullshit most of the time.
The people shall have the right to vote. Even the stupid ones? Yes. Stupid people vote? Yes.
So that would have made the movie better, but instead, Blofeld's sitting around griping about his dad, and we have no context for that. It's just shit. So anyway, last comment coming from Andrew A. Spectre makes the soul of Bond feel soulless. Unanimously, everybody's like this movie
is the
sucks.
worst one. Yeah.
You know,
I guess it sucks. No, I think I did like that comment about Patterson's love of the old Blofeld and the Shadows. But this movie also reminds me of like the Halloween Rob Zombie remake. I know there's some people that like that one, but then I've heard there's a lot of fans that don't like it because it's just shining a light on something that was supposed to be mysterious to begin with, and it doesn't help it. It's just like, okay. But even then, even if they did it the right way, I think Blofeld would not be this Blofeld. It would be a much more interesting person. And I don't think he would be tied to Bond. It just doesn't. It's like, why did you tie him to Bond? Like, just make him like a really evil dude.
Because it connects to Skyfall. That's the only reason is because it makes it a direct sequel to Skyfall.
What is it?
It's personal effects they recovered from Skyfall.
And they
but
didn't
there's
need to
no
do that.
need for it. There's no need.
It could still have been a direct sequel in as far as like, yeah, this just happens after the events of Skyfall, and like there's some stuff that happened in Skyfall that carries over. But like we've said this at bon nauseum that having Spectre or having Silva being part of Spectre is really stupid and really like, yeah, you've said it multiple times.
Retroactively
the last
cheapen
movie.
Skyfall. If you just had some simple flashbacks, either in Skyfall or Spectre or both, to give us some context as to so that we could possibly believe that these guys are brothers, that would have helped. Let us hang out with Hans Oberhauser for a bit and his two sons.
But don't even make it like make it a
great.
big secret reveal. Like don't even like that's what I was saying earlier. It's like they make it so overt that he's gonna be Blofeld. Maybe even Franz Oberhauser is somebody who they are looking to, like, he's gonna help Bond, you know? He's like, oh yeah, we were brothers, Bond, and you know, I'm gonna help you find Mr. White, who's looking for you. You're looking for this mysterious Blofeld figure that Mr. White has said is the head of the Spectre organization. I'll help you find him. And then like, I don't know, there's some bait and switch and you find out.
And then Franz turns out to be Blofeld.
And you're like, oh, well, at least that's a better plot.
It's at least clever.
It's better.
I
mean, it's again, I'm spitting out something kind of messy, but I'm still
anything would have been better than what we got, where it's just, I'm responsible for the last 3 movies. Only the ones you like, though, not so much that second one. You know, it's so pathetic.